This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and the season is here. It's week 0, and I cannot be more fired up, Shane. We are 1 week away, well, a little over 1 week, from Arizona football week 1. Isn't that crazy to think about?
We got college football this weekend in Ireland and elsewhere. It's kind of it's kind of surreal because it feels like it shouldn't be here this fast. And on the other hand, it's like, what took it so long? But it's I think back to, each year we've done this, the expectations going into each year have been different. And like, how often have the expectations met, like our expectations met kind of what actually happened? I want to say the only year where that's really happened is, well, you know what? Each of the first 2 years of Jed Fisher's tenure might have fit that regard. I think especially the second year, we expected some improvement, and we got it. They went from 1 win to 5 wins. They beat ASU for the first time in 6 years. Other than that, I feel like there's been some surprises, both good and bad. Good with Jed Fisher's third year was even better than I think we thought it would be, even though we were optimistic, and then certainly last year did not live up to our probably inflated expectations. So hopefully it's the former this year of especially, at least for me, which is that I don't think they're going to be very good, and hopefully they're fantastic. But we won't have to wait too much longer to find out.
So let's get into buy or sell, and this is a kind of a special buy or sell, Shane, off the cuff here. This is the exact 5-year anniversary as we record this on Tuesday, August 19th. It's the 5-year anniversary of the first podcast episode of Wildcat Country that we did. It was COVID. We didn't know when sports were going to happen. And we just, we set this out. I kind of pitched it to you. Hey, why don't we bring it back? And you said, yeah, why not? Let's do it. And we were both kind of switching careers at the time. And what a ride it's been. I mean, the fact that we're still going 5 years later is incredible. We
didn't know there was going to be any Arizona football that year. And in hindsight, we probably wish that there wasn't, although it did help usher in the Jed Fisher era. Yeah, definitely. I think the first few episodes was more just kind of reminiscing with, football, like Rich Rodriguez we had on. I think it was our first or second guest ever. We had Scooby Wright on and some other guys. And that was pretty much it. It was just kind of just like shooting the breeze, which I still like doing. That's still our favorite kind of interview. But now, it's nice to have some results to talk about. And it has not been boring. We joke about, what are we going to talk about this week? Never had that problem because there's always something to talk about with, even in the offseason, coach firing or hiring, a big recruit comes or goes. Some NCAA does something ridiculous, which is an evergreen week, evergreen situation. So never a dull moment.
Let's do a few superlatives. We do this every so often, but on the 5-year anniversary of our show starting, I thought it'd be a good one just off the top of your head. Your favorite recurring guest. No offense to those who come on often, but just one that you have always enjoyed having on from time to time.
Yeah, I'm gonna hurt someone's feelings, I feel like, but I'm gonna give it to the man you deemed years ago as the professor. We always learn a lot from Matt Moreno when he joins us with his recruiting updates. And honestly, I keep track of our show's numbers. They're typically up when he joins us. People want to hear what he has to say. He's in the know. He gives us good updates as far as where Arizona's at with different recruits, what we should know about a new commit for football or basketball. And I think he is our number one recurring guest. He's there. I could pick from a number of them, but I'll go with the professor because just as the tiebreaker, I think he's joined us more than anyone else, hasn't he?
He has, correct. In the nearly 30 times, a little under 30
Oh, wow.
times, between 25 and 30, which is wild to think about.
That's about
You
one
know,
out
I'm
of every 8 or 9, almost one out of every 9 episodes.
Yeah, which seems about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Moreno on basically once every 2 months, a little about
Yep.
that. So this week's episode, we have, I believe it's for the ninth time. It could be ninth or 10th time. I'd have to go back and double check. Brian Jeffries, the voice of the Wildcats. And I'm going to put him, no offense to anyone else, but this is a legend. And he's come on, he's told some great stories with us. He's always honest. Never no BS.
No.
And just getting a chance to be able to sit down and talk with him as often as we do, probably 2 or 3 times a year, is really, really cool. I think the other one for me, no one that we because I love 99.99% of our guests. Uh, Phil Steele. That's always a cool one, just because I love that song.
Yeah.
So that one to me is a good one. How about your favorite one-time guest, Shane?
Yeah.
I have one. Yeah, one time.
Well, I'm going back to Brian Jeffries for just a second, and I'll mention this because I just remember how panicked you were, and I was a little bit too, when we had Brian Jeffries and Tim Healy on at the same time. Because we were going to have them both on to preview the ASU UVA game. I think that was before the 2022 game that Arizona won.
Yeah.
And all due respect to Tim Healy, he's been great with his time, very generous with his time. I wrote a couple books. He's about the rivalry, and he's a great guy. But he went in quite a great bit of detail about ASU's roster. And Brian Jeffries could got a word in here or there. So like we barely got that because we had the 40 minutes of free Zoom, and it was coming up on the end there, and we just barely got the end in. So I still think about that. It's funny in hindsight, but the panic at the time. There were two guests where like we were running out of time, that 40 minutes. And it was Tim Healy, Brian Jeffries, and then Bill Walton. Because we got 4 questions in with Bill Walton. He took up the whole 40 minutes. So. All right. Favorite one-time guest, was that the question?
Yep.
Okay. A little recency bias here, but I really like chatting with Andy Lopez. We had him on during the Arizona baseball's postseason run this past year to the College World Series. And of course, the 2012 team won the national championship under Andy Lopez. He's won national championships with multiple teams, and just a great guy, great stories. Like a whole bunch of like, did you know, kind of behind the scenes stories. We probably could. The best interviews are the ones where we wish it could have gone on for a few more hours, really, and like we're just shooting the breeze, like I talked about. And he was one of them. So I'm thinking more. I'm sure if you mention a few names, I'll be like, oh yeah, he was great too, or she was great too, but. Again, recency bias. I'm going to go with Andy Lopez.
Having Lopes on was awesome. I'm going to go with just a couple of big names that I would never have imagined that we had on our show. The late Bill Walton, which was just a wild interview where we restarted that. And I think having one of the most random guests that we've ever had on the show, Steve Spurrier.
Yep.
I mean, the old ball coach, you're like, oh, 2 guys doing a U of A podcast. The next thing you know, we're joined by one of the ultimate college football legends. I still cannot get over the fact that we had that. That was a really cool one that I really enjoyed. I mean, we've so many great guests over the years.
Yeah.
It's hard to choose. Most random guests. I'm going to start with one. I have a feeling you're probably going to say this one. Spurrier was right up there.
Yep.
But I think Wilton Spate.
Yep.
When we were talking about Jed Fish and trying to figure out his coaching style, former quarterback of his. At Michigan. That was the most random guest I think we've had on the show.
I think it's a tie between Spate and Spurrier. I think you hit the nail on the head. And for context, for those who don't know, for newer listeners, and first of all, thank you. Spurrier we had on because he was going to speak at a coach's clinic that Jed Fish was because Jed worked for Steve Spurrier and he's got this endless number of connections. So we had Steve Spurrier on. It was a shot in the dark. I found an email address for him. I sent it to him, and a couple days later he calls me like, because I'm like I think it was in the car, and I just kind of tightened up like I'm talking to Steve Spurrier right now, and he was more than willing and happy to chat with us. And he wore an Arizona Wildcats shirt, I think, when he was chatting with us as well.
Yeah,
his son coached for U of A for a short time.
Yeah,
and then Wilton Spate we had on because when Jed Fish was hired, very few people were happy about it, us included. And we were trying to think of some positives. And so I went back on social media, way back when it was called Twitter, and I found I looked up some of the former players he coached, and one that I looked up was Wilton Speight, because he coached Wilton Speight when he was a quarterbacks coach at Michigan. And I saw like Wilton Spate's most recent tweet was like, congratulations, Coach Fish. Couldn't happen. Like the best coach I ever played for. I'm like, okay. So I reached out to, I didn't have Wilton Spate's contact info. He didn't have his DMs open. So I reached out to Rudy Carpenter, who we follow each other on social media, and said, hey, do you happen to have, it's shot in the dark, but do you have Wilton Spate's contact info? He did, passed it along. And we talked to Wilton Speight for a good 20 minutes about why Jedd Fisch was a great hire. So it's funny. Like with no context, you're thinking, why on earth would you have either of those guys on a podcast about the Arizona Wildcats? But there's your context, and both are related to Jedd Fisch because he branches out. His branch of players and coaches goes on endlessly.
That was something. No doubt, one of the most random, probably the most random guest we'll ever have here. Yeah. What's been the highest Arizona moment of our 5-year tenure on the show? What was, this one took me a few seconds to think of. You can go, women's basketball making it to the championship game. You can go Arizona's 2023 football season. The basketball team, men's basketball team, going to the Sweet 16 a couple of times.
The Iowa State game, the Caleb Love game. You can go. I know the lowest was probably that 70-7 live stream where Jay Johnson, national championship winning coach from LSU, former Arizona coach, was watching us there. I would say the lowest was losing to NAU the following year, but it's very close if you want to debate
close.
that.
Yeah. The highest. Let's talk only positives.
I think the biggest accomplishment, if you're just going by accomplishments, it had to be the women's basketball team's run, coming inches away from winning the national championship. But my personal favorite was the Alamo Bowl win. For those who don't know, you and I, Eric, we probably see each other in person 2 to 3 times a year, maybe.
At most.
And,
yep.
Yeah, and for this game, you actually came over to my place to hang out with my nephew Zach and I. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then I remember in particular, like it looked like it was kind of a lost cause. Oklahoma was up by 10. They were driving again. We're thinking, it was a nice season. We'll appreciate it for what it was. And then that fumble, technically the fumble, Dalton Johnson knocking the ball loose, Gunnar Maldonado returning it 90-something yards for a touchdown. Like all 3 of us were like standing, yelling at the TV, going crazy. It looked like Arizona was dead in the water, and that play just changed everything. And so that, I think from a personal perspective, because we got to hang out, my nephew was there too, who I converted to an Arizona fan when he was little. That was probably the most fun that I've had doing, even though it wasn't during a podcast necessarily. That was the most fun I've had in relation to the podcast, if that makes sense.
I just think that whole season, from the winning streak that started on your birthday, that big win over Washington State, and it just didn't stop. 7 straight, and it was, that victory over ASU was one of the most satisfied that I have ever been watching an Arizona football game.
We watched the Utah game together at Tucson as well. Like we were both wondering, what is T-Max throwing a touchdown? That was a lot of fun
in the rain. In the rain, and it was a glorious. It was a glorious time. I would say that was probably it. But that women's basketball run that they made, and all the guests that we've had on, it's been. I literally think about it and I'm like, can't believe we've done this. Like I can't believe we've had a chance to talk to all these people. I think a couple obviously have passed away, and Bill Walton and Heath Bray, who we had on the show once. Great people.
And the first version of the show, before you and I started it, I hosted with Jeff Dean, who's the PA announcer for the football and men's basketball team. And we had Dick Tomey on a couple times.
Oh, wow.
And so, I was able to chat with him as well before he passed, and obviously a wonderful man. So
really, we're lucky to do this, and we're going for a while. It looks that way. So really excited to keep this going, and just many thanks to you for all the work that you do with it. Many thanks to our sponsors over the years. We have one coming back next week. We'll talk more about that. And to Harris Auction Casino, who has been awesome for us. So we're really glad to.
I'm very thankful that Harris Auction Casino's GM is an Arizona Wildcat.
Thank you, Mike Kintner. Yes. That's right. Thank you, Mike Kintner. Always a great guy. All right. Let's move on. Number 2, Shane. The Big 12 is instituting a rule that says they will issue 15-yard penalties to teams after a third instance of throwing items on the field. The problem is Texas Tech says that they have problems because they throw tortillas.
Mm-hmm.
Buy or sell that this is actually a pretty good rule, or if you sell it, it means it's probably crap.
Well, the vote was 15-1, and of course Texas Tech was the one.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of surprised. In my ignorance, I actually assumed that a rule like that would have already existed, and that it would have been, if nothing else, I think you get 2 warnings. You throw. I feel like they maybe should just get 1 at most. But yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, maybe you make an exception for traditions or whatever, but I was surprised to learn that this wasn't already in place. This seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, easy buy.
I think for me, I actually kind of don't like it, Shane. I kind of sell it. I mean, how many people throw things on the field? First of all, if you throw things on the field like items, it shouldn't take 3 times to. I mean, if you're flooding beer bottle, I mean that's penalty. I get that. But what is the team supposed to do to control the crowd? I mean, what are we going to see? Brent Brennan got on a microphone? Like,
well, say the same thing about rushing the field. Although getting on the microphone, I don't know if you're. It's a crazy question to ask, but if you're old enough to remember when Sam Weiss did it.
Oh, it's great.
Cincinnati. You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati. But no, I don't think it'll usually come to that. But yeah, I mean, if you give the crowd a warning and security doesn't boot the people out, and one of my first thoughts when I saw the rule as well, Eric, is I do remember, and Arizona fans are not the only ones guilty of this by any means, but there was an Oregon cheerleader who got hit on the head with I think a bottle or something at the end of that 2009 game. So that's the kind of stuff that obviously you can't tolerate. So that right. I'm thinking more along the lines of that sort of thing.
Okay, fair enough. So you posted something on X about last week. So Arizona is 10th all time in most college baseball wins. They are 1 game behind ASU, 3 games behind USC. Buy or sell, Shane, Arizona will jump up from 10th on that list in the next year.
Yeah, I think so. I was a little surprised, and we talked about this after the baseball season ended. I was a little surprised to see Baseball America not have U of A in its early top 25 for next season, and they had ASU in there. Arizona was a better team last year. Both teams lost a lot of guys to the MLB draft, but I feel like it was kind of even in that regard. So that surprised me a little bit. I do think, try to be objective. I think Arizona will probably be at least a little better than ASU next season, in which case you'd think they would win at least 2 more games and leapfrog ASU. And then USC isn't on their top 25 list. Andy Stankiewicz, who used to coach the GCU baseball team, he's done well there, but I don't think they're a team to be feared, and they're 3 games ahead of Arizona right now. So, yeah, I think Arizona leapfrogs both programs next season. The question is, will they stay ahead? Will it flip right back in 2027 if they, like those top 10 lists, like where they show like results over the years and you see one team leap the other and vice versa. It might be one of those situations. But yes, I think that Arizona will be 8th in that category at the end of next season. But after that, who knows?
I don't even know. It's so early at this point, but sure, I'll buy it just because I'll buy it. I mean, without knowing any more, ASU should be decent, even though they lost a lot in the MLB draft. I want to just touch on something here. We'll talk to Brian Jeffries about it. RIP to James Farris, who is a key member of the 2020 or the 2012 Arizona National Championship baseball team. Just a tragic loss in his early 30s due to cancer. Just any thoughts on that, Shane?
Yeah, horrible. He went to Highland High School in Gilbert, not too far away from where I live in East Mesa. Was a big part of Andy Lopez's World Series championship team. He threw a fantastic game to beat South Carolina in the clinching game in 2012. Yeah. Ever since, I'm trying not to bum people out too much here, but I just, ever since I became a dad, things like this hit me even harder when I see that someone is left a child behind. My wife and I had a close family friend who was a bridesmaid at our wedding who passed away a little over a year ago from cancer. And she left behind a boy about our son's age. And I know that James is a 2-year-old son. So it's devastating. There is a GoFundMe for the family. I reposted it at Cat Country AZ on X. It's also on Arizona Baseball's page if you want to donate to the family. But awful. It's just it's there. There's nothing else to say about it except we wanted to acknowledge that he was an outstanding athlete and by all accounts a great husband and father, and it's we've seen, like you mentioned, it's tough when you see people who are part. You feel like even if you haven't met someone, you feel like, okay, they're an Arizona alum. It's kind of like a family. It's not like literally that you're that close, but it's like you have that common bond, that common thread. And so when you see something like that, or when Heath Bray passed, I think just a few weeks after we had him, he was on our show. You feel it a little bit more just because you have that connection, because everyone's so passionate about their alma mater. But James was an integral part of the baseball program, and certainly I'm sure someone who Andy Lopez cherished quite a bit, and he will definitely be missed.
A tragic loss. So many prayers and condolences out to his family. Before Brian Jeffries joins us in the next segment, we'll talk more about James Farris. Wanted to remind you that Harrah's Auction Casino is the sponsor for Wildcat Country. And why wait for rewards, Wildcat fans? At Harrah's Auction Casino, your play today means free play tomorrow. Sign up for Caesars Rewards, play your favorite slots, and unlock up to $25 in next day free slot play. Plus, your rewards go beyond the casino. Enjoy dining, entertainment, hotel stays, and more at 50-plus destinations nationwide. Bear down, play today, get rewarded tomorrow. Only at Harrah's Auction Casino. Must be 21 or older to gamble. Know when to stop before you start. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 or 1-800-NEXT-STEP and visit the Caesars Rewards Center for details. Coming up, it's the GOAT, Brian Jeffries, here on Wildcat Country. Shane, there is no better way to start the football season than to bring on the legend, Brian Jeffries from the University of Arizona. You've heard him on the air for almost 40 years, actually probably more than 40 years. And the one thing, Shane, that I thought about, when you think about broadcasters, and you always will read critique or criticism across the board, this is a guy who I've never seen anybody say a negative word about. That's how respected he is. Would you agree with me there, Shane?
But have you talked to my wife lately?
outside of her, Brian.
Oh, okay, all right.
You shouldn't say something like that, Eric, because when you're 1 out away from pitching a perfect game, you keep your mouth shut. It's like now, as soon as I go back on social media, I'm going to see someone say something.
Nobody's gonna. Nobody. I'm telling you, Brian. Good to have you here. Last year when you were on the show, you said going into every season, you have this optimism that hey, things are going to be good. Last year didn't pay off. How do you feel, honestly, going into the 2025 football season?
Well, I'd say more optimism than questions. Let's put it that way. I think that the second year under Brent Brennan has already showed in camp. The guys that came back are practicing with a lot of energy. I think they're more committed. They understand what they need to do. The coaching staff, I think, has been upgraded. The players seem to love their position coaches. They've also have over 50 new players on the roster this year, and there's a handful of those that are going to have to play this year for this team to have some success. So that's probably the question mark is, well, they're new. A lot of them out of the portal, so they played football elsewhere before, but how will they fit in with this team, and will they be able to play at the level needed for the Wildcats to be successful this year? So just like every season, until you actually see an opponent, you really don't know. But yeah, just like last year, and I feel that way every year, if Arizona stays healthy and they play up to their expectations, they got a chance to win some games.
Brian, no one's told us this on verbatim on the record, but Eric and I have been able to infer that maybe some guys on the team last year kind of had one foot out the door. Like they were kind of thinking already where they were going to play next year. Presumably, the guys who were still here want to be here, and obviously the transfers do as well. But do you think that maybe there's kind of like a fresh start sort of feel in that regard, even though Brent Brennan, it's his second year, obviously?
Yeah, and I don't know what coach would say about it, but I think, in the hallways and behind the scenes, and maybe we didn't realize it last year as the season went on. I certainly didn't, but I think there were some guys that weren't committed fully, and they're gone now. And some of them had to be weeded out. Some of them left on their own. Some of that comes from a coaching change. I think it happens everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're Alabama or Arizona. I mean, it happens, and that coach has to then kind of weather the storm through the first year and come back in the second. I saw one stat that I thought was kind of interesting since I think it was 1977. Arizona has had only one coach. I think that makes sense. Yeah. First season, only one coach since then has had a winning record. And so I think a lot of that has to do with, again, the change of direction that you want to make with the program, no matter where you happen to be, wherever that program might be in terms of its success versus failure. You got to get through that first year, and then now you've got your feet on the ground. You're running, you're ready to go, and you expect better things.
So as far as this season goes, what is a winning season? What is a successful season to you, Brian?
Well, they got to, excuse me, win more than last year.
Okay.
They got off to a pretty good start. They were 3-1, and then went 1-7 down the stretch. So, they finished with 4 wins. They've got to win more than 4 this year. I think, you've got to make progress. Let's put it that way. I don't like to put numbers on it. I would love to see this team get to at least 6 wins, get into a bowl game. I think that would be a great step forward in terms of what Coach Brennan and his staff want to do in terms of development and building the program and the culture that they want there. If they could win more than 6, I mean, that's gravy to me. And I haven't looked at the schedule and picked out games and said, okay, this is a winner, this is a loss. I'm just looking overall saying, I would be really happy if this team could get to a bowl game this year. Now, I don't know if they're going to get there. We'll find out here in a week or so when they play some outside competition and kind of get an understanding exactly what they have.
Brian, it's interesting because we've had a lot of people on about and ask them about what position has impressed you the most at Arizona, from Phil Steele to Barrett Baker, and they've all said the wide receiver position, which is kind of surprising when you consider that they just lost arguably the best wide receiver in the history of the program. Do you think that is a position of strength for Arizona going into the season?
Well, yes, because of the depth, Shane, and I think that's the number one thing. Tetairoa McMillan was, fantastic, one of the best all times at Arizona. But he didn't have a lot of support behind him. And until I think late in the season when Chris Hunter kind of came alive, Noah Fafita had really one guy to look to. The other guys just had a struggle getting open. This year, at least in practice right now, I would say they got a lot more depth. Bobby Wade, the wide receiver coach, says that he thinks they can go 8 deep in terms of their wide receiver rotation. And they've got some new guys that have come in that have certainly been a help to that. Some transfers that I think are going to pay some dividends. Trey Spivey, junior son, I think has stood out so far. Luke Weissong out of New Mexico, I think has a chance to do some good things. Chris Hudson, transfer from Washington State. Those are 3 of the new guys that, to me, I think are going to be in that wide receiver rotation, along with Hunter and Jeremiah Patterson back again, and some other guys that have been on the roster. And now you hope that they've made that progression. But I've got 9 wide receivers on my chart right now, and Bobby says 8 of them are probably going to play, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, they brought in some nice players. You mentioned Spivey, Weissong, Hunter stepped up. So it'll be nice. The days of Jacob Cowing and Tetairoa McMillan seem so far away. What's your biggest concern as far as a unit goes? Is it the offensive line? Is it the defense in general? What would you say the biggest question mark is on this team?
I'd say both lines going in, Eric. Offensive line really, right now in camp, only one guy has been in the first unit that played last year. And so that tells me that, okay, the depth is better. They had 20 offensive linemen when they opened camp, which is about twice as many as they had last year. A number of transfers. There's a possibility that, they could have 4 transfer starters up there on that offensive line, some guys that have played a high-level Division I football before. So like I said earlier, what impact will they make? And we don't know until they see outside competition. But they've also had a couple guys nicked up that I think have a chance to play and maybe start. Will they be ready for Hawaii? Well, we don't know yet. There's still maybe 7 or 8 practices yet to go. So I think the offensive line, and that was no secret coming in that was going to be an area to keep an eye on. The defensive front to me might be a bigger question mark because we just don't know yet. Again, they've got depth there. They've got some size. How effective will they be? They've changed things. Danny Gonzalez, who's taken over now as the DC, has gone to a 3-3-5 defense, so it's a little bit different look than we saw last year. So maybe that takes some of the pressure off those defensive linemen if they're playing three guys up there and they're going to depend a lot on the back half to do a lot of damage. Well, then that could be a good thing. But I'm going to hold judgment until we see them against Hawaii. But that, to me, the defensive front, that front seven maybe, or I guess in Arizona's case, the front six, I think is something we got to keep a close eye on, and that could very well, dictate where this defense goes. The back five, the secondary, I think is without a doubt the strongest part of this team.
Agree.
I mean, hey, that's what we need. I thought last year at the end of the season it was a battle of attrition. Of the 5 road games that Arizona has this year, and we talked to you about this last year as far as road trips go. Arizona's at Iowa State, at Houston, at Colorado, at Cincinnati, and at Arizona State. Of those 5, which do you think is the most intimidating trip for Arizona? I mean, I'm going to exclude Tempe because, I mean, that is what it is. Of the other 4, which is the most intimidating? And which of those road trips, once again excluding Tempe, are you most looking forward to?
Well, Iowa State is the answer to both. Because of the strength of that program here of late, tremendous fan base. It's early in the season. And so let's look at it this way. Arizona needs to win its first 2 games, okay? Hawaii and Weber State. They've got Kansas State at home after that, all right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you Arizona's going to beat Kansas State, but if the Wildcats could win those first 2, and if they're playing well, they get some momentum going. If they could beat Kansas State, beat 3-0, they've got a bye week before they go to Ames. And Iowa State's going to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 this year, once again. And so I'm looking forward to that one simply because I would love to see the Wildcats 3-0 going to Ames with a week off before that game. And if they're playing well, then who knows? I think that's the atmosphere you hope to see. I know the atmosphere is going to be great. I'm just talking about Arizona's atmosphere in terms of what they take back there. And, just roll it out and see what you can do.
Brian, I want to ask you about the relationship between the Arizona football program and the fans, since you've covered this team for as long as you have. I know the marketing team, they've added a lot of different things and incentives to get people to come out to games, and I think that's all good. We've talked about it. Eric and I have a lot, but I'll just ask you this and take it whatever direction you want. Compare the relationship between the program and the fans, say 40 years ago, like during the middle of the streak, versus now. Is it as strong, not as strong? Where would you put it?
That is a $1 million question, Shane, and a lot of people have asked that over the years, and it's tough to say. I know some years ago, a marketing firm in Tucson did a deep dive into the Arizona football fan base, and their results were that there are 42,000 Arizona football fans, die-hard Arizona football fans in Pima County, 42,000. The challenge for the U of A has been to find the next 10,000 to get them in the door year in and year out. And I don't know if that's changed or not. I think you're still going to have that core base there. And what do you do? How do you get more people in the stadium? And yes, there are a lot of enhancements there. There's no doubt about that. But fans, it's probably going to be a wait and see thing this year. You come off a 4-8 season after winning 10 games the year before. And there's, if you, as you mentioned, you look at all the preseason publications, Arizona's not turning a lot of heads in preseason play right now, or at least the outlook. So what do they do those first 2 weeks at home? Those first 3 weeks at home, what do they do to ignite the fan base? And that's going to come down to how the team plays. Let's say they go 2-1 after 3 games, but they're competitive. They play well. And I'm talking about Kansas State. Let's just say they don't win that game, but it's a great football game. Is that enough to ignite the fan base? And I hope so. But I have a feeling that people are kind of sitting back right now waiting to see what this team has. And part of that is what all of college football and really college athletics is going through right now, and that's the portal and players moving around. And, other than Noah Fafita, there's not a lot of names on this team that if you went around and asked Arizona fans, hey, name 5 U of A Wildcats right now. Go.
Right. Yeah.
And after Noah Fafita, people would probably struggle, but
Yeah.
That's just the way of the world right now.
Yeah, yeah, very true. And I got two more for you. And talking about a program that does not have the same issue in terms of bringing out fans. The new design at McKale Center, I think it's gotten universal acclaim. A lot of people have a lot of analysts have talked about how much they like it. Your thoughts on that as someone who's seen a number of court designs at McKale Center?
Oh yeah, I mean it's fun. I mean it jumps out at you.
Yeah.
And of course I'm there every day, so it was interesting watching the artists out there with the template they had down on the floor, and they're down on their hands and knees, and you didn't see exactly what was going on down there as they were drawing this thing out. You kind of knew what the concept was, but until they actually pulled everything off and looked at it, and immediately it just yeah, it is bold. And I think that's part of the evolution of the game right now is that you have to be different. And so it's different, but that cactus logo, and you guys remember this, I mean, when it was developed, uh, back when Lute Olson had things rolling, and that was the staple of the program. And for one reason or another, it went away, and there was a struggle to get it back. And it's great that the campus and the athletic, it started with athletics, and the campus had to approve it. That they said, okay, we need to bring that back because that's unique to Arizona. There are other logos out there around the country where you might get confused between. I've seen animal heads from different teams, and I have to wait a sec. Okay, what school is that again? You see that Arizona cactus logo, you know exactly what school that is, and I think that's part of the project behind it. But it's gonna be fun. Now, those of us that Oregon went with the deep woods, and people always ask me what was that like, and I said, when you're courtside, you don't even notice it. And I asked the players, and they say they don't notice when they're playing on it. So this is really more for the fans than anything else. And I know the players they think it's fun, but once the game starts, the players won't notice that logo. Right. And those of us sitting courtside, except we're hoping, how many guys are going to hit that shot from the cactus. That will we'll keep a chart on.
If Caleb Lover's still around, he'd be gunning for the top of the saguaro there. But
first one, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you, Brian. We appreciate it as always. I got to ask you about James Farris. It passed away earlier this week after a battle with cancer. Big part of the 2012 championship baseball team with Andy Lopez. Any memories you want to share about him?
Well, that was obviously a special team because of the championship. But the personalities on that team I will never forget. I mean, it was and again, I hate throwing out these things loosely because you hear it too often, but the chemistry on that team, and baseball to me is very different when you talk about chemistry. And that's a team that I have never seen an Arizona baseball team with that type of. I will go back to 1986 when they won it, and Chip Hale was on that team. That team had a lot of characters on that team. I mean, they were fun bunch, but the 12 team just had this personality about them. They were mature, but and yet they played they were relaxed when they played. They were never tense or anything. And I think that's one thing led to their success. And so, James was part of that. And that pitching staff was special. And college baseball getting a special pitching staff is a challenge for coaches. And it was then and it is now. And I remember his humility. That probably stands out the most. Again, and not a guy that if he had an ego, he didn't show it, and that blended in with that team perfectly. So, and I know that it's been a struggle for him and his family, and one of the donors, one of the Arizona fans, had stayed very close with him and kind of kept me updated over the last few months. And we knew that his time was short, and so we send out our prayers and our best to his wife and his family, because I know it's a tough time, and he'll be remembered fondly.
A tragic loss at his age. There are no words, and I thought you summed it up very nicely, Brian. Last question on a happier note. Which team that you broadcast, or at least on campus, are you most excited to watch this year? women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, football. Is there one that you're like, all right, I think they're going to exceed expectations, whatever those are?
Well, that's a loaded question because you'll get me in trouble with everybody else.
Yeah, on purpose. He's doing that on purpose.
I don't mean to do that,
But I mean, I'm excited every year for every sport. I get to do three. And I tell people I am blessed to be able to do three because the change of seasons, if football doesn't have a great year, I look forward to basketball. If basketball's down, look forward to baseball. If baseball's down, I look forward to summer. And so there's always that next thing to come along. But I will be honest with you, Eric, okay? After watching them practice, I am most looking forward to Tommy Lloyd's basketball team. He has 7 freshmen on the roster, okay? 5 quote-unquote veterans and 7 freshmen on the roster. And I've watched them play, and I don't think they're getting much due, at least from what I've seen nationally, because you have 7 freshmen and the expectations aren't real high. He's got some serious talent on that team. Now, how far can those young guys grow? And they got a pretty tough schedule, non-conference schedule this year. I don't know the answer to that, but I love what he's got there in terms of just the talent. I mean, they are really, really good in practice situations. And so, I'm excited to see that because, after last year's team and had a great postseason run and, they lost some guys, at least one of them that we didn't expect to see leave. And then you kind of sit back and say, well, maybe this is going to be a rebuilding year. But then when you see them in this current team in person, I just sat back and said, wow.
So I have to ask you a bonus question here, and Shane's going to get mad, and I can't wait to see his eyes roll here on the stream. Is Tommy Lloyd a little too ambitious with the scheduling in Europe? I know they're big teams, great, but adding the national champs as your opening game with a young roster, is that a little too much?
I don't know. I mean, I like the philosophy of going out and playing good teams. I think it gets you ready. Arizona is a program that expects to be in the NCAA tournament every year. Okay, if you play a cupcake schedule, how is that going to prepare you, when you have to play the best teams in America? Last year, I remember they had a tough trip down to the Bahamas last year. After losing to UCLA up in Phoenix, we were all kind of wondering, okay, what's going to go on here? And guess what? They got it rolling. And I think those early games, as painful as they may have been, probably did more good for them than bad. And to the credit of the players last year, they didn't let that bring them down. They built on those games and got back into the tournament again and had a nice run. And so I got no problem with it at all. I mean, I'm looking forward to those games. I mean, just selfishly, you'd rather play that than directional university every week. So, hey, bring them on and see what happens. And yeah, they're going to take their lumps, but the season's judged by that final record. And so I think those games are only going to help them.
Shane's going to take a victory lap after this segment. Brian, as always, great having you on. Thank you for doing it. And I'm sure we'll talk to you before basketball season so I can ask that question in some other form.
All right. Love it. Thanks, guys.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Really enjoyed talking to the legend Brian Jeffries, Shane, and you know what it's time for? College football picks. Now, last year on this show, we had Blair Willis on. We did a bunch of, picks with a long drawn-out thing. We're not doing that this year. We're going to keep it simple. We already gave you our Big 12 predictions and how many games we think Arizona's going to win. I said 6. Shane said 5. Shane, let's do a few season predictions. In how many games will Arizona be favored this season?
I got them favored in 3.
Okay.
Hawaii, Weber State, and then maybe Kansas for homecoming. I don't think they're going to be favored in any road games.
Oklahoma State, they'll be favored for sure.
I think Oklahoma State's going to be a better team. this year than we think.
Okay,
so
fair.
I think that's an area of disagreement. If Arizona played Houston at home, they'd probably be favored in that game as well. On the road, I think Houston will be a slight favorite. So I'm going to say 3.
Okay, I'm going to say 4. I could see Arizona favored against Kansas the first 2 games and Oklahoma State. You could make an argument for BYU, but probably not. But I'd say 4 seems about right. I'm guessing, believe that Arizona's last game this season will be played in Tempe. Is that correct?
Correct. I have them going 5-7, so that's what I've got. Now here's a fun would you rather though. Would you rather Arizona go 5-7 with their last game of the season a win at ASU, or would you rather them go 6-6 and go to a low-level bowl game regardless of the result? If that included a loss to ASU.
It's a loaded question.
I know. You asked Brian Jeffries a bunch of loaded questions. Here's one for you, pal.
I really want to go to a bowl game. But then again, you know what? I hate to say this. If Arizona's 4-7 and goes into Tempe and upsets ASU, I'll take it.
Yeah. How good would we? How we feel good going into the next year, right?
Going into next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But
yeah.
leave some. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. Let me know what you think.
That's a great question.
I think
that's
so.
a great question. Let's go broad college football. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy?
Oh, before I forget, did you say where Arizona's final game is going to be played?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Right, you're right.
You haven't going to a bowl game.
I think Arizona's final game will be played at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, in the LA Bowl.
Okay. Is that being sponsored by anyone this year?
I don't know.
Jimmy Kimmel or Rob
Gronkowski. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just gonna stick with the LA Bowl. Yeah.
Maybe you should. Maybe our guy Mike Kittner at Harris will sponsor it. Yeah, that wouldn't make much sense geographically, though, would it?
No, probably wouldn't.
Right, scratch that.
Yeah. They sponsor a lot of things. I don't know if they need that one. Yeah. Heisman Trophy winner. Who gets it done?
Cade Klubnik.
Yeah, me too. I have the same.
From Clemson. Really? Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not a Super Bowl pick. Super bold, not Super Bowl. But he had an outstanding 2024. I think this year he'll be even better. It's as simple as that. I think he's going to edge out Carson Beck for the Heisman.
I don't like Carson Beck this year. I think Klubnik is probably the way to go. I think Clemson is. I hate to admit it because I don't root for Clemson. I think they're going to be very good. In fact, Shane, I think let's make our college football semifinal predictions. Semifinal number 1, the Fiesta Bowl is one of the games. I believe the Peach Bowl is the other. The first semifinal I'm going to say is the Peach Bowl. Give me Clemson and Georgia. Who you got?
Eric, you may not like this, but I got Clemson and Georgia as well. I've got Clemson winning. I think Clemson's a little bit better up front on both sides of the ball. So give me the Tigers.
Okay, how about your second? Because you and I agree. How about your second? Who in the Fiesta Bowl semifinal? Who you got?
I've got Texas and I got Oregon, and I got Oregon coming out on top. I think Texas is a bit overhyped. Oregon has reloaded. They've got a chip on their shoulder. They've had one all off season after getting flat out embarrassed by Ohio State in the quarterfinals. So I got Oregon over Texas.
I have Penn State over Texas.
Okay.
I think Penn State, that defense should be, they did lose Abdul Carter, but getting Jim Knowles from Ohio State to coordinate the defense is, impressive. They did lose Tyler Warren on offense, but Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, strong backfield there for the Nittany Lions. I think they make it to the national championship game to face off against Clemson. Are you picking the Tigers to win it all?
I am. Clemson, they return 16 of their 20 most valuable players from last season, according to Pro Football Focus. They got an experienced quarterback. I think their defense will be better. And best of all, I like the idea of the SEC again being shut out of the national championship game. I think that's going to be a great game if it happens. I think Clemson's defense is going to be a bit too much for Oregon, and and the Ducks are going to finish as national runners up for what I believe would be the third time in the last 20 years or so.
Okay, fair enough. I am going with Clemson over Penn State. The fact that you and I agree is crazy. I thought I would be kind of alone with Clemson there, but I just think Klubnik, this is for Dabo Swinney. I think this team is a veteran squad, and they're going to be tough to beat. So get your Clemson bets in now. All right, it's time for our weekly picks. Can Shane overtake me this year He has a shot. Here's how we do it. We do 1 point for a spread pick. We do 1 point for an upset special cover. 1 point if they win outright. We'll get those going in week 1. And 2 points for Arizona's game. But we have 2 games that kind of relate to Arizona in week 0. Let's start with them. This game's being played in Ireland. Iowa State is a 3-point underdog against Kansas State. Where do you side there, Shane?
Well, K-State was my pick to win the Big 12, so I'm going to stick with it. I like what they did in the offseason. They loaded up on weapons on offense to complement Avery Johnson. I think Iowa State takes a slight step back from last season and maybe have a little bit of a hangover after that beating they took against ASU in the Big 12 championship game. So I'm going to take the other Wildcats in the Big 12 to win by 10 in Ireland.
I think it's going to be closer than that, Shane, but I'm going to take them as well. I think Kansas State wins something like 27-20, 27-23, something in that range. But I'm going with the Wildcats there, so we both agree. Now here's an interesting game. Arizona's week 1 opponent, Hawaii, has a week 0 game against a weird Stanford team that lost a lot, and including their head coach. They have an interim coach in Frank Reich. Hawaii is a 2.5-point favorite. I like the Warriors to win this game and come into Arizona Stadium 1-0. I really think Stanford could be among the worst Power 5 teams this season. Do you agree?
You almost talked me into it. I'm going to be a little crazy. I'm going to take Stanford outright. It's more about Hawaii. They're 13-25 overall in Timmy Chang's tenure. I know Stanford's starting fresh again with Frank Reich and of course Andrew Luck as GM. I think Ben Gulbranson, who I think was just named Stanford's starting quarterback, he'll avoid enough mistakes. I think he'll help Stanford win what's likely to be a very ugly game at Hawaii.
It's going to be interesting. We have a whole slate of week 1 picks to give you. We will have picks for you on every show from now until March. Get ready. If you don't like it, you fast forward and you get to the end. If you like it and you want some betting tips or you just want to hear the breakdown and make your picks along with us, why not? We should do kind of a guest picker among the fans sometime this season. So if you want to do that, just leave something in the comments. We'll talk about that idea. But I want to thank Brian Jeffries for joining us. Always great to catch up with the legend. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.